Hey, big fucking dreamers. So pumped to be here with you today. So, I'm going to be talking about a different format of the episode, and I'm structuring the podcast a little bit differently. And you're going to see this in the upcoming months, in that each of the episodes are going to be basically evergreen episodes. So, the topic episodes are, I'm not going to be including really any personal updates at the beginning. You're going to be able to access them whenever you want without it kind of being recorded at a moment in time. However, that being said, I am adding another podcast segment, and that is called Kiss and Tell. And this is the first episode of Kiss and Tell on the wedding recap. And during these Kiss and Tell episodes, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about what's going on with me personally, a topic that I'm specifically working through, what's going on in my personal life, and give you guys a little bit behind the scenes of what your coach is doing. So, in this episode of Kiss and Tell, my first episode, I am very excited to welcome Corey Welsh, three-time returning guest. She's the most featured guest on this podcast and will probably be featured many more times. And so excited to have her. And we are going to be discussing all things wedding because Corey also recently just got married as well, which is super exciting. So, Corey, welcome to the Big Fucking Dreams podcast.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I am honored and tickled to be your first guest as we kiss and tell. And I can't wait to get into the nitty gritty of your wedding recap because we haven't even had our own personal debrief in not much time.
No, Corey, like, we got on this episode and Corey, we started talking about it and I was like, wait, like, wait, no, let's just hit record. Like, this is all really good material. We've got kind of some topics that we discussed before that we wanted to just hit on. I would say let's talk about, like, number one and kind of like the myth of the perfect day of the wedding and just the internalized pressure that a wedding automatically puts on people. But I actually have to say, and I was thinking about how to do this because I can't just come on here and talk about how amazing my wedding was, but like I actually did feel like I had the perfect day. Like my wedding, at one point my mom was like, "You're so not stressed that it's stressing me out." And I was just like, I was just like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." I was so fucking happy the whole day. Mm, But I'm curious with you. I actually think that that happened the day of. It didn't happen leading up to it. Like, leading up to it, I felt really and we're gonna talk about body dysmorphia in a minute. I felt like a lot of stress, a lot of pressure to kind of have it be perfect, but then by the end, I just let that all go, and I think a lot of that was also, like, having my bridesmaids with me, like, my childhood OGs. So, what about you? Did you, like, feel like there was any pressure for it to be perfect?
Oh, yes. And it resonates so much with what you just said at the end there. Having your people with you helps so much, but you're not really in that community the whole lead up to the wedding. So you're planning hopefully like with your partner, often thinking about it every minute of every day, or hopefully not. That doesn't sound like a very healthy construct, but there's so many external factors that weigh into that idyllic image. So there's your family, and you want your family to have fun and be happy. Then you want your, stakeholders. Let's say you have like a financial sponsor of this wedding. You want them to be appeased with decisions if you're not paying for the whole wedding yourself. And then there's you and your dreams. And in my case, like my partner was heavily invested and envisioning like his dream day as well. So you're trying to like please a lot of parties. And I remember thinking to myself, there is no way this wedding is going to be able to be everything that everyone wants from it. So who gets the ultimate call? And the answer is like you and your partner, of course. We know it's your day. And everyone gave me the advice, don't worry about when things go wrong because there will be something. And you have to be ready to just embrace that as part of the story. That's exactly what happened for us when there were hiccups. They kind of added to the color and the humor of the day, and I was on cloud 9, and I looked back and I was like, "That was the happiest day of my life."
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's interesting, like, you have a partner who's, like, way more involved in the decision making. I would say Mike had a lot of opinions on things. I would say, like, Chris did not have a lot of opinions, but was just, like, bankrolling most of it. So, like, I was like, "This is the perfect scenario," where I was like, "I'm the creative director and you're just the financer." And, like, I was like, "Chris, this is what we imagine for our wedding." And he's like, "Yeah, that is what we imagine for our wedding." I was like, "Yes, exactly." Like, this yeah, like, I don't think he knew. I was doing like, initially, it was definitely more 50-50. Like, the workload was, like, really split between the 2 of us. But then as time progressed, I took on a lot more of it. I would say it was more like 80-20, and there were times where I did feel a little bit resentful at him because it was like, I'm, like, putting in so much effort, like, you don't even know what's going on. But then I looked at it, and Chris is like a fractional COO. So right now he's working at this crazy company that has to do with like technology that scans oil rigs. Anyway, like Chris really worked so hard so he could pay for like, and he was like, I don't want to um it was actually just like he was like, I don't want to like skip corners here. Like I want to get everything that you want. I want to get everything that we want. And then it was like really putting it into perspective of like, okay, well, you're kind of paying for a lot of this. Like I paid for, a chunk, and my family, like my father gave us a good amount of money, but Chris definitely was like the main stakeholder. And then as well, I think that my family's overseas. Chris's family, like, didn't really have any input to like a like his family's so amazing, and my mother-in-law is just a very she's just like the loveliest woman, so no one really had any opinion. So I was just like, I'm ready to fucking go. But like I know that I feel like for you it was a different experience. Like Mike was like super involved with things. Like Mike had opinions, your mom had opinions, and navigating those tensions. Yes, she did. Yeah. Navigating those tensions can be and I was coaching you through those as well.
Right. I would say that what stood out to me when I heard you is that, like, you were almost the creative director, like you joked.
Yeah.
You had your financier, but I also think that even if you are in that, like, solitary, let's say, lane of deciding things like, which florals are you gonna go with? Which choice of everything, by the way. There's also a little bit of a pressure to, like, get it right. So, for example, like, you want everything to be perfect. Was there ever a time hand where you, like, were indecisive and you wished you had more input? Was there ever a time where something went awry that day? I haven't even heard a single example that you were like, "Oh, no, it's not going how I envisioned it."
Well, the florist that I got, and her name's, I can never pronounce it, Anise, and she's from Datura Studios. She's so unique. Like I got her because she was a really unique, different, kind of like wild florist. It was like not like her florals were like artwork. It was nothing I'd ever seen. And I said to her, like, I want it super non-traditional. I don't want like one traditional bridal thing. Like we are doing no white. We are doing like no white and green. And then probably 2.5 months before, I was like, I think we should go with white and green. And then I was like, I think we should go with like orchids. And she was like, no, like hold the vision. Like this, she was like, this is not what we talked about. Like we talked about, and my florals were kind of like deep burgundy. They were like really moody and sultry. And like I wanted it to be almost like an enchanted, like fairy forest with like some moody, sultry background in it. And that was exactly what I got. Like we had fruit on the tables, we had candles on the tables, but I kind of like wanted to change it last minute. And then I wanted to change the type of cake that I wanted. Like I had this cake with these unbelievable like flower structures. And I went to the cake designer and I was like, I want this like deep red velvet, like crepe looking cake that was like out of the ordinary. And she as well was like, no, I don't think so. Like, I think the cake that we originally chose and designed. So it was kind of like these last minute, like impulsive decisions where I was like, no, like scrap it. And then it was actually my vendors that were like, no, we had a vision.
Trust.
Let's stick to the vision. Let's stick to the mood board. But it's hard because you look on Instagram and so many people have these like picture perfect weddings, and then I'm looking at Vogue and I'm like, well, fuck, maybe my wedding should be like that, or my wedding should be like that. And it's like, well, you can't have every single style in one wedding, so you kind of have to like choose and then run with it.
Yes.
Did you feel like that as well?
Oh, I totally, yes, relate, especially to the, like, comparative experience when you're thinking about, like, social media. Also, just wedding culture, like, when I went to a bridal boutique, I would see the bridal magazines, and then those would, like, influence my original vision, and I would have maybe second thoughts or doubt myself a little bit. But what I'm so curious, by the way, Hannah, I'm not letting you off the hook, is did you like how it came out? Were those vendors correct when they urged you to hold your vision?
100%. And like I went in, when I went into the wedding venue, we did like a sneak peek and I just looked around and I was like, I'm amazing. Like that was the first thing that I said. I literally was like, I'm so incredible because I didn't have a stylist as well. And I brought in tablecloths, I brought in chargers, I brought in like cut crystal glassware, and it just looked like an enchanted fairy tale. And there was like fruit all over the table. Like it literally looked like you, and there were fairy lights everywhere. And just so many candles. So it looked like you just walked into this like glowing fairy tale. And I'd never really seen a wedding like that before. And that was what I really wanted. You know me, like my biggest fear is that I'm ordinary. Like all I want to do is like be unique and different. So yeah, like I was like, I have to be different in some way. And I was actually stunned at how well it all came together. But they were like, like a week before, I was like, should I get like deep red velvet napkins? And the florist was like, no. And so I feel like I probably would have gone a little overboard, but it all came together in this glowy. By the time this episode releases, the next day I'm doing a post on just like all the details and the flowers and the settings and the musicians but I think as well, yeah, like not having a planner, it was like I had to source all of my own vendors, and I didn't have one dead vendor. Like every vendor was incredible. And that was like, okay, I was so happy with all of my selection. But that's not to say like it was fucking grueling. Like, I don't think you didn't have a planner as well, right?
Right. So we used to
Yeah.
go with a day of coordinator who does help
Yeah.
facilitate on the weekend of, but we selected all our own vendors. We created our own, like you did, artistic vision of what we would want the day to look like. And what I feel like you did without saying it in these words, Hannah, is what we called like our guiding principles. At the beginning of the planning, even before we picked our venue, we were like, well, wait, what do we want this wedding to be? And we'll talk later about like what does marriage mean, but also what is the purpose of a wedding? And those guiding principles helped us anchor when we were indecisive or torn between two options. We were like, well, wait, what did we say we wanted? In your case, it was like a mystical, enchanted, beautiful escape. And I mean, it was in Australia, so it probably wasn't hard to like execute that in a natural, like beautiful setting. We knew that we wanted to have like a beautiful beachfront or oceanfront, like tribute to Mother Nature. And so similarly, like we didn't have a stylist tell us what colors would execute that. We just went with what are our favorite colors that will be vibrant and go with the ocean. And then that's exactly how it turned out. Very like beachy and tropical, almost like an escapist, like vacation aura. But we'll launch my details too. This next podcast episode goes live.
You go.
I just loved how you shared that, you were primed on that day to really have the perfect day. Like it sounded as though because you had your OGs around you, you had stayed true to your original vision and you didn't end up changing the cake or the linens. Like, what else do you think contributed to you being so happy on the day of? Like, did you do your morning rituals? Were you able to be present? Because you were also hosting a bunch of people from overseas. How did that go?
I was able to be really present. I actually think that one of my bridesmaids, Lana, just put on like one of her playlists that she's been compiling for years, which was like 2000s stripper music. And like that was like the playlist. And it was just this like dirty rap music that we like grew up with. And it just my mom was like rolling her eyes, and my mom was like, get me out of here. But it was just so like that really set the mood. My childhood best friends, they're such hype girls. Like, you're so beautiful. Like, you're the most beautiful person I've ever seen, which is just like what you want, like what I mean, not any bride, like what any person wants to hear. So I think like having those hype girls, and as well, like we had, three makeup artists and hairstylists, and it was just like a really good. I think by that time, I was just like, I've done so much work for this that actually I just want to have like so much fun. And my three best friends, like it was my three best childhood friends. And then my very close friend Lily, who is from who I met when I was living in New York, and she lives in Melbourne, and then it was my brother's girlfriend. And I knew that I wanted it to be super fun. Like that, I was like, I want it to be fun. I want to be laughing. I'm obviously not drinking. At one point, my bridesmaid Ariel, she was like on the phone and she's like calling room service. She's like, "We're gonna get 4 Aperol spritzes and 4 shots of tequila." I was like, "No, you're not getting shots of tequila right now. Like, hold the tequila until after the ceremony." But it was just like we were all jumping on the bed. We nearly broke the bed. The photographers came. The photographers were just a great vibe as well. So I think having that as the introduction to my wedding, that when I got to the ceremony, I was like, "Let's go." Like, I was, like, ready to rage. I was like, "This is, like, so" like, ready to rage, and, like, I was, like, ready to party. I was like, "This is so fun." And then, yeah, but I'm curious, like, you spoke about guiding principles, and I think that's I love that. I wish we had actually had those written down just because, you and I are, like, such, like, process geeks. But, was there, like, any decision where you referred back to the guiding principles where you're like, "Okay, actually, we're torn between 2 things, like, what did we say that we wanted?" Like, how did those actually come into play?
Yes, we have a really specific example, which is probably why I love talking about them. But I'll have to look back because I have them written down somewhere and I don't have the list in front of me. So we talked a little bit about what we both pictured for our wedding. And, as a woman, I think people assume that you've like envisioned it for your whole life. I didn't really feel like that type of girl, but Mike had always had a vision as well, which I think is very sweet. He's the youngest. He has two older sisters. They've both been married before. So he kind of had this picture that he wanted to get married by the ocean, which he loves. And fittingly, I also love. And we also knew we wanted this to be, I'll tell you, the second guiding principle was really a celebration of gratitude for the people who raised us and made us who we are. So, in addition to celebrating us and our commitment, we knew we wanted it to be like for our families, featuring our families. And the third thing that I added later in the like process was I really wanted it to be inclusive. I wanted everyone to be able to be at this wedding. So, we decided, for example, that we would not have it in Hawaii because that is just not going to be financially feasible for some people. And I remember that felt like easy because we had talked about what we both wanted. And the later time that it got difficult was when we were torn between venues that were located at the beach, very much like on the sand, walks away from where, accommodation would be and the people would be arriving, versus my preference was to have it maybe like on grass or something a little bit more accessible that was near the beach. So you're still witnessing the ocean and, as you all can imagine, same vibe, different location. And we were at a crossroads where we actually were pretty divisive. Like, Mike felt like his ultimate dream was not going to be possible if we went with my dream. And we talked about, like, well, let's look at the reality of our guests and who we want to be there. Like, are we going to enjoy this beautiful place in Carpinteria, California, where the guests would have to walk over a train track? The train could feasibly go past during the ceremony, and you'd have to like walk between a big set of jumbo rocks to get out to the beachy ceremony site. We decided no way is that going to work for us. Like, we have people who needed different accessibility features. We even looked into how much it would be to rent the mat that goes out onto the sand to make it more feasible to walk on. And ultimately that helped us decide on this like great accessible hotel that had a path of cement and a beachfront grass that everyone could walk on seamlessly. And I'm just so grateful that we were both able to like compromise and talk vulnerably about like what we wanted to make possible. And our elderly relatives were able to come and walk out because of that. I know.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. And I love how you like actually returned back to it and thought, well, this is what we wanted. This helps in the decision making process. Like my dream was like get married in a fairy forest, and I wanted to find like some sort of, I don't know, wooded forest somewhere. And that to me was like was outside of Sydney, but my family, I spoke to them about it and they said it's actually a lot to ask people to travel to Australia and then to drive 3 or 4 hours on top of that to be able to make it, and everyone would have to rent a car, and that poses a lot of difficulties for people. And so it was, even though I'm so happy with my venue and I actually like was the vision that I wanted that came to life, but it it was kind of disappointing at first, but then I had to remember like, okay, I actually do want all these people, and I actually want to be a good host as well, and, like, think about the guest experience, like, that does really matter for me, especially the people traveling so far. So, yeah, that was yeah. So let's go kind of, like, this is something that really surprised me about the whole process, which was experiencing a lot of body dysmorphia, how much pressure I felt to lose weight before the wedding. And this is just to preface as well, like, I generally feel like I'm very blessed. Like, I love my body. I love the shape of my body. Like, I don't experience, this isn't a really big stressor in my life. Like, I grew up as a competitive dancer, and when I was competitively dancing, this was something that did plague me a bit more. But like most women, I probably had like a bit of disordered eating, but this is not something that I struggle with. This is not something that I think about. And so it was quite shocking to me that right as I got engaged, right after, I felt the need to lose weight. Like, I felt like this pressure that I hadn't felt since I was competing, that I should be skinny, that everyone's gonna be looking at me, that was, like, one of the most important things. And it was really, and, like, I just wanna be clear, like, I didn't lose a lot of weight before my wedding. Like, I lost maybe 5 to 7 pounds, like, and I think a lot of that was just kind of not really stress, but this wasn't like I didn't drop 20 to 30 pounds before my wedding. Like, that was never the plan. I think as well, like, the wedding culture, I got asked so many different times about my weight. And, like, right, like, when I was trying on, like, dresses, it was like, "Okay, well, this is dress that you choose. Are you planning on losing weight?" When I got the dress, it was like, "How much weight are you planning on losing?" My first fitting, it was like, "Okay, let's talk about your weight loss." And it wasn't even like no one was insisting that I lose weight. It wasn't even like that. It was just that this is part of the wedding dress process where people assume that brides are going to lose weight. And I asked Chris, like, did anyone ever ask if you were gonna lose weight when you got your tux fitted? And he was like, "No, like, that never came up." And it's just this pressure that's kind of put on women that, um, I like, Martha Beck always talks about how culture is usually stronger than the individual, and I was so surprised at this type of culture and what happened. And I don't know if you felt like that as well, and if you were surprised by it or if you had an experience with it.
Yeah, I definitely relate to first, like, just the amount of noise about it. So, for example, like, before I go into my personal journey, I've been a witness to many weddings too, which I hinted at. Like, I've been in bridal suites, I've been a bridesmaid 7 times, and I'm gonna be a bridesmaid this weekend, the 8th time. And so I've been around many different types of brides who talked about their own journey trying to lose weight, who used terms like, the wedding diet or shredding for the wedding. So I remember very, very early on feeling like the first time this came up for me was I actually didn't want to go wedding dress shopping because I felt as though I wasn't ready yet to go look for the look that I wanted because I hadn't like built a plan around how I was going to get in better shape for the wedding, etc. Um, so secondly, I think I'm so curious, Hannah, what you think is the source of all these pressures originally. Like, in addition to the wedding industry and bridal fitters, fitting professionals, was that reinforced by anyone in your family or your friends and bridesmaids, even if it was totally not malicious? Because I definitely did notice even people in my life would ask me, "Oh, so like, how's it going? Are you on a wedding diet?" When I would be at an event where we were eating. So food would be like a common topic. And I'll never forget, like, one of these examples was my mom's friend. So someone who's a part of, like, a different generation that I do typically attribute to having more, like, stereotypical views of dieting and body expectations. And I remember wanting to defy that and thinking, like, "No, I wanna love my body exactly as it is right now. Like, I shouldn't have to change it." And then at the exact same vein, like, going to my gym and investing in a new regimen. Like, I started a personal training package that I've not even thought about doing for, like, 5 or 7 years. I haven't done strength training. And by the way, in the end, I did it for 12 to 15 weeks before the wedding. I loved how I felt after doing personal training. And so I'm not ashamed, but I do remember being very torn between wanting to like be happy with how I looked at the moment and wanting to also feel a little more confident, strong, and lean before I was in a wedding dress in front of everyone I know.
Yeah. Well, it's also like one of the most photographed times of your life. So, but I think that society, like the pressures that are put on women to shrink ultimately, and it it saddens me. I kind of thought that I was more like evolved, but it turns out I'm not. And that was a little bit shocking as well to be like, "Oh, you're experiencing this." And yeah, I don't know that I have a resolution for it. I don't really. It's just something that I hope continues to be spoken about because it's also something that I don't really think is a healthy societal norm.
Exactly where I was hoping you would go with that. I think one thing that I maybe took away, not necessarily learned or applied well, but that I did observe is what you said about culture. It's true that it is a strong force that is larger, at least, if not like stronger, than just our own, like inner psyche. So I can say that I want to be self accepting, for example. And I feel relatively lucky as well that I love my body most days of the year. Not every day, but most days. However, at the same time, like there are people asking you if you're going to lose weight. It's normal that you would ask yourself, should I be losing weight? Or if there is an image that is very pervasive in social media of brides on their wedding day, and then magazines with brides that are all a size 0 or a size 2, or you go to a bridal boutique, they don't have dresses larger than like a size 10. I think those forces are gonna make us, like, question ourselves, and what I observed be, like, one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed in another bride was one of my girlfriends who had absolutely 0 desire to change what she looked like in advance of the wedding. She is someone who is very self-confident, in my mind, has also been through all sorts of different phases of, like, athletic activeness, and also, like, we all in life, right, experience, like, fluctuations in what our bodies look like because of age and having children, etcetera. And I just remember thinking, like, that's so refreshing because it felt rare, and I agree with you, I hope we can talk about it more and that it becomes less rare, because I don't think there should be any need for us to change despite what we wanna feel in photographs, or something you said, Hannah, was, like, how our inner, like, voice might say, like, "Oh, well, you wanna feel your best. Oh, well, you wanna be confident on that day. Oh, you wanna love the photos." Well, maybe I love the photos of how I look right now, and it's not the skinniest I've ever been. How do we, like, change that societal expectation? I think it takes a lot of intentionality, like, it very much would have to change in the public and social view of things.
Yeah, because essentially it's like an industry disruption. This is almost like a time where it's societally acceptable to like talk to women about their weight. I don't ever think it's acceptable. Well, maybe 5 years ago, I decided I don't comment on people's weight at all. I don't comment if they have lost weight. I will tell people if I think they look really good, I'll be like, "Oh, like you're glowing or you look so happy." Like I don't even say like you look healthy in weight loss. I don't find it appropriate. And one of the reasons is because I remember when I got really sick with an autoimmune and I did lose a lot of weight because I was really sick and couldn't really move for months, people started telling me how good I looked. And I was like, this is the worst I've ever felt in my whole life. But all of a sudden, because I'm like thinner than I usually am, like people are commenting on it and think I look well. And so that after that, it was an experience that really stopped me from it.
Wow. Thank you for being vulnerable and bringing up this topic because you just touched on it. Like, it's difficult to know exactly how to navigate it, especially with, like, certain you're right, like, people in your life, you can talk about it or you've talked about it before. Particularly for me, it's, like, with family because 'cause we've been talking about it since we were young, like, as sisters and with my mom. So, yeah, just first appreciate you calling it out there. I'm gonna think about that actually as I continue whether or not I should do personal training or not. And
Yeah, let's
mm,
go into just kind of talking about what is marriage? Like what does marriage mean to you? and why did you decide to get married? What that means for us individually.
Mm, big one. Big question for me to take first. And luckily, I feel like happy to do it because I think in my heart, I had built a point of view on marriage like early on. And for context, was single for many years before I met my now partner, my now boo, who's official. I was single from, age like 25 until I met him at 33. And I knew that I was interested in marriage as a path to basically like join your life's journey with someone else's such that you could have a companion on that journey. I also love the idea that you could aid in each other's journey, like being easier, being more fulfilled because you could do it together and therefore like do more together. Um so yeah, I mean, I had these big ideas, but I also had big questions because a lot of my friends got married before me when I was still like single and, hopeful, but at times discouraged. So I'll never forget, I also read a book about marriage, which was really fascinating. If anyone ever read it or picked it up, it's by Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and then later wrote a memoir. Very few people read it called Committed. And I found it fascinating to read about like how other like cultures and spiritual belief systems like see marriage. I wouldn't say I overcomplicated it. I just realized like I think if I find someone with whom I feel like a better version of myself, I would love to share in the journey. And that's what ended up guiding me in my last few years of dating. Probably not till I was in my 30s was I like looking with intention for someone who wanted that too, and someone who was, kind of carrying these qualities that I knew were really important to me. And I made a list of those qualities in my phone, just like Chelsea Handler did. And thank goodness, like pointing toward those with a compass and not settling for anyone who didn't have them led me to meet this guy, Mike, who on our very first date, like we learned that we both wanted the same thing. We both really wanted to find someone and get married. And we also kind of had the same ideals about like starting a family, prioritizing family, pursuing our creative dreams. That ended up, yeah, leading me down this path. 2 years later, I'm already married. Who would have seen it? I want to hear what you thought of marriage, Hannah, before you met Chris. Like, what did you think of marriage originally? Has that changed? Like, what do you think marriage means now?
Yeah, like, I mean, marriage was kind of I feel like a little bit more of a, hurdle. Like, I remember saying to a therapist once that I could totally see myself being CEO of a tech company or the CEO running a business or being on Forbes, but, like, I think being married was something that I saw as so unattainable. Like, I was like, "This is never," and I think a lot of that has to do with how I saw myself. A lot of that has to do with abuse that I endured, when I was a teenager and, my what I kind of thought my place in the world was, and I just saw marriage as something that these other normal people get in the world, and, like, you're never gonna be in that club. Like, it's really quite sad and devastating, but I had to do so much work on myself to really see that this is something that isn't attainable. This is something that so many people do get to experience if they want it, and this is something that what I really want. And I left LA when I was very young. Like, I left LA when I was 18. I haven't like lived back there since, and it have always been like a super independent person in the world. Like, it's always been like, I'll make my own way. I'm not reliable on anyone. I can do it myself. So really overcoming that, and also realizing like my life, and I've had some really great partners, but I've also had like very toxic relationships as well. And not that that is the fault of the other person. Like, there were two people in those dynamics. So a lot of it was learning how to be in a functional, healthy relationship. Also, like, learning how to be in a functional, healthy relationship sober as well. My like conflict skills used to be like get blacked out and like yell at my partner. Like, that was how I knew how to fight. And I now, as you know, like, I teach, even in my courses, I teach communication now. So it's really been an entire 180. 180 for me. And even like Chris during his wedding speech was like, Hannah pushes me to be like such a better person, but like pushes me in therapeutically approved ways. I would have loved my therapist to walk you down the aisle. Like, I feel like I had to do so much learning about what it means to be in a functional, healthy, beautiful partnership. And I think with Chris, like, I'm so used to just like trying at things in my life. Like, I'm a really hard worker. Like, I am a little worker bee. I can try, I can outwork people. I know what it's like to push for things, but I think when I met Chris, like, I have never had to push for anything. Our relationship has been so easy. Like, there's never been like, I mean, but we were also together 4 years before we got married, and I think I met him when I was 31 and he was 38. So we weren't kind of, young. Like, all of his friends have like kids that are like 7, 8. Like, he was really like the last one of his friends to get married. But nothing ever has felt hard. And I think for marriage, like marrying Chris, it was like looking at my life as infinitely better with this person. In my wedding speech, like that one Christmas, he gave me this podcast microphone, and it was at the one that I'm currently recording on. And it was at a time where I was really struggling. Like, was it the right choice to leave tech and just start my business? And he was like, you know, start your podcast. Like, this is, people will listen to you if you talk. And I have found a partner who makes me braver and bolder and brighter. And I remember actually you had asked Chris one time, it was at your engagement dinner, or when you and Mike were in town, you had asked Chris, like, what's it like being with Hannah? Because she's so, you had said, like, Hannah's, like, so confident, and sometimes she's really outspoken, and she has this podcast, and she wanted to be on stages, and I remember looking at Chris's face, like, as if, like, that thought hadn't occurred, and he was like, "No, like, let's get her on more stages, like, let's get her making more money." Like, she should be bigger because 'cause we've got this huge fucking mortgage to pay that he's, like, never, and I think being with a man who, like, Chris is, like, like, so successful in his own right, but Chris, like, doesn't want to be a star, and, like, I want to be a star, and Chris, like, wants to help me get there. Like, he is, versus, like, having 2 people kind of fighting for oxygen in the relationship. I don't know if you, like, have listened to Lily Allen's new album, which, by the way, oh my god, it's just, like, it's a work of art, but it's about the breakdown of her marriage, and it's because, both people, like, wanted to be a star, and she was becoming super successful, and I think, like, a quality that I was looking for in a man was, like, someone that was so confident in himself, but I want to go on and do big fucking things in public, and I wanted a partner that was going to lift me up and love me because of that, not in spite of it. Like, I married my biggest fan, and like, I'm his biggest fan as well. And so when I think about marriage, it was like, what is going to enable me to be the most me?
I'm, like, letting that simmer
Yeah.
because I do think you started getting here, but I was so curious in my mind, like, what changes now that you're married? Because Chris has been, you're right, like, your biggest fan for a while now. I do remember that dinner where I asked him, and if you've been together 4 years, you've started building a life together, you guys live together, what do you feel like the act of actually getting married has done? Has it changed anything? Like, do you feel differently when you woke up on October 18th?
Yeah, I mean, I keep saying to him, like, "It's so weird that we're married," and he's like, "No, it's not." I'm like, "Do you not feel like it's weird?" There's been some stuff that has come up with me that I think I've had to work through in the background. The big thing is having children and working through, I have a lot of fears around motherhood. I wouldn't necessarily say, like, working through that with him. I think a lot of that's my own work. I don't know how much of it he can do, and the realization about, like, what's his and what's mine and what's the relationships, like, those are 3 distinct categories that we each have to manage. Uh, but I think as well, like, I was talking to my therapist about, just, like, a parts polarization, and Corey, you've done level 2, which is of my program, which is all around parts polarization when, like, one part wants you to do something and then another part is in conflict with it and wants something else, and I think there's, where a lot of my work is, like, l letting myself be really happy and be content and not having to, I don't have to, like, try and strive so much. Like, that's like, I can just kind of be and, like, settle, and, like, it's not, not always kind of pushing for things, not always running, not always being on to the next. So, I think, like, now this phase of marriage and also just not having the wedding the wedding to plan, just, like, feeling feeling a bit more settled. But what do you think about your perspective? Like, what's changed for you after marriage?
I think a lot of what you said hit home, and for us, one thing that was very notable, even though you mentioned it, too, like, the fact that the wedding is no longer now looming over you. You have this, like, spaciousness in your mind and your schedule. We had a few things come up, shortly after the wedding that were, unexpected, like the way that life hits you when you're an adult. We had a health emergency on one side of the family, and then we also had some, like, travel plans that needed to change because of that. We were traveling to another wedding, and so I think it was, like, we had a very early use case of, like, putting our marriage to the test, like, this challenge that obviously will be imminent. I mean, everyone has challenges coming all the time. We got to, like, not dress rehearsal. Like, we got to go right after the marriage and, like, was sealed. What I think I realized in that moment, like you said, when you wake up and you're like, "It's weird. Wow, we're married." What we've been saying over and over is like, "Wow, how crazy is it that we're family? Like, you're my family now." Whether or not, you each who are listening have your own family that you've always also either been close with, or some people are not close with their family. Like, all of a sudden now, I have a new family that is a priority, and it's a small one because it's just me and him and our cat. But what used to be like a mic issue or a mic challenge, like, is now our challenge to tackle. And that was just really, like, beautiful to see, like, to watch him navigate. I literally felt differently about it. I was like, how can I support? What do we want to do? Instead of being like, oh, what are you going to do about this situation? So, even leaning into, like, a choice or a financial investment, like, together instead of just, like, taking the lead from the other person and then supporting or helping. Yeah, so that was, like, a really interesting circumstance that came up just by way of, like, timing right after the wedding was over. And the last thing that I love that you said, though, Hannah, is, like, there's 3 categories still for us to manage in our family, which is, like, his and mine and ours together. And I still do believe that, like, I have my own challenges that will come up, whether it's, like, my career or something I wanna do personally with my fitness or whatever, and then he'll have his things. But I do like thinking about it as though, like, every single one of those is now ours to consider, and it's already, again, come to life with, like, me navigating thinking about what I wanna do next in my career. I feel like we've had deeper talks about it since the wedding than we ever did before, and the honeymoon allows for that too. If you haven't, like, booked in your honeymoon, I know, Hannah, you guys went away right away after. It was, like, such a good time to, like, decompress, debrief the wedding, and then talk about big dreams and plans, and, it is a moment in time for you guys to, like, for us to shift into a new mindset.
But such a beautiful perspective about what you shared about how, like, this is now your family and, like, letting it and I could like, Chris, I just always I said to him yesterday, I came home after being on a phone call, and I was just like, "God, I'm so grateful for you and for our relationship. And, I have a lot of like, my parents are divorced, my grandparents are divorced. Like, I have a lot of fear around divorce that I've had to navigate. And he doesn't come from, his father passed 5 years ago, but they had a very long marriage, his parents. And he doesn't even come from, like, growing up, he didn't even, like, no one in his neighborhood was divorced. Whereas growing up, like, all of my friends, like, there were, or like, that was just kind of, it wasn't abnormal. And, but really, like, navigating this is, I just really love what you said about, like, yeah, this is actually our decision and our, like, this, like, you are my family. And I think as well, like, having lived away from my family for so many years, and having been, like, hyper independent, like, letting myself over the years, like, Chris was just like, I'm always gonna take care of you and provide a life. And in his vows, he was like, and we're gonna live a really colorful life, but not too colorful. And I just like died. Yeah, no, I was laughing during the vows. I couldn't stop laughing because I was like, you know me too well. He's like, we're not gonna have thruples in Barcelona, like being a thruple, but like we can go swing dancing every week. That was just, yeah, I just talk about, like, absolutely love that. But, I think that marriage, like, it does also bring up like, reflection of where you're at and what your own self-work is to do. In closing, I'd love just to hear, like, each of us kind of talk about the favorite moments of the wedding, and like the things that were the most special to us. So I'll hand it to you first.
I've been thinking about this a lot because, like I hinted, I'm going to a wedding this weekend, and I've been sharing my advice to all the brides to come after me. The most special moment, I'm going to go with what came to mind first, was after our ceremony. I think it's pretty traditional for people to go and sneak away from their own wedding to maybe do a photo shoot. My photograph, team, they called it doing the romantics because you're going to take photos, usually just you two, after like you've been surrounded by family all day. And it's sunset magic hour in some cases. But little did I know, not only would that be so fun, we ended up going off to the beach, which you all remember we got married on the grass. So we had to go to the sand to take some photos. We weren't really alone because we were with the photographer, the videographer, and the assistant. And then afterward, they ushered us away to have like a private moment. They were like, we're going to put you over here. You can look at the reception hall to take a sneak peek, like you called it, of your space, and just like chill for a second and decompress before you're surrounded again by all of your guests. And I did not know to prioritize that time or like anticipate how fun it would be, but we like sat down and drank our signature cocktail. We talked about how fun the wedding ceremony itself was. And then we remembered that moments later we'd have to do our first dance. So we actually, like, on a whim, decided to practice. And we were not like you, Hannah and Chris. We had not choreographed or like taken dance lessons. So we played the song on one of our iPhones and just like practiced what we would do. And it was such a special little moment. It was like the only moment we had all day that we were alone. And I look back now and I laugh because people had warned us that you don't get a lot of that alone time. And people had said, make sure to be present at each little snapshot moment. But that was my favorite time of the whole day because you're with your bestie again. And you're like getting to pause in the middle of what's such an overwhelmingly fun day to like dial in and tune in with each other, check in and say, like, how are you? Did you love that? Like, what do you need? And be there for each other. It was cool.
Aw. And I just loved you and Mike. Like, I don't know Mike very well, but he's like a soul brother. Like, I'm like, you're my soul sister and Mike's my soul brother. Like, I'm hearing his vows and I got to watch your video and I just was like, oh my God, that's so you two. And it was so, like, I spoke to some people after your wedding because it was just devastating. Like, I couldn't make it work with my wedding so close before. But, I was speaking to Liz and, Liz is a big fucking dreamer. So she might be listening to this. But Liz was like, the wedding was so Corey. Like, you telling me that you had like table captains as well. I was like, that is so Corey as well. Like,
Table captains to create the fun environment we wanted. Highly recommend for anyone in the planning phase. It was such a success. And it made not only like guests feel special, but it made sure every single person at each table was included in a part of the wedding. So, yeah, it was very
You're
me, but the best part, Mike did all of that. He
yeah.
planned, like, who the table captains each would be. He wrote the instructions for them, like, these were things that were really both of us, like, reflective of our collective, like, personality.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. It's just so great. I love you so much. I would say I don't know, there were a few, but my brother marrying us. I love my brother and he's my little brother as well. So, he's not in a officiant or a celebrant. We figured out a workaround so he can conduct the ceremony and then we had an official legal celebrant thereafter to do all the legal paperwork and everything. But he like had just all these instructions on how to do it. And I remember like meeting with him 2 days before and I was like planning on writing out the speech for him. I don't know why. This is like such a big sister move. I was like, okay, like I've like written out the speech for you that you're gonna say. And he already had it. Of course he already had it done because he was doing the wedding. Like I don't know what I thought, but he rehearsed so much and he actually just stood up there and delivered it so well. Like people, I think as well, Australians hear Americans and they just like think they're really great public speakers. Like people were asking him, like, do you do public speaking for a living? And he's a firefighter. Like he definitely yeah, he, like, does not do that for a living. Having him stand up there and he gave us, like, a celebrant's blessing at the end. It's like, Hannah's my older sister, and she's, like, the most special person to me and nearly, like, choked up a little bit. It just meant so much having him by my side at that moment. And then also, like, Chris's vows and Chris's speech, it was so us, and I was like, "This man knows me so well, and I'm so grateful that I found him." Like, even more, I just realized how in sync our values are and how really aligned on, like, pretty much everything. Also just listening to, like, ratchet rap music with my best friends, like, getting ready. I'm basically saying the whole wedding, and then our swing dance is also amazing. I would say, like, the ceremony and Chris's vows and Chris's speech were, heartwarming. Chris met me when he was 38, and he was like I had a list that was really long that I kind of hoped, like, never like, I didn't know how I was gonna find someone with all of these qualities, and he was like, "And now that I've met you, the list is so much longer, and you're the only person." Like, he was like, "And you're it. Like, you're the only person who has all these qualities. Like, there's actually nobody else for me because I've met you." And that to me, like, it was just so yeah, I just felt, like, so fucking lucky about who I married, and I feel like I could cry right now. Yeah, it was so, so special, and I too was single for 7 years before I met him. It was all worth it.
So happy for you, Hannah, and happy that you not only found him, but that you, like, held out and stayed true to exactly who you are while you waited to meet him, and
Yeah,
I love you so much too. So, I
yeah,
loved, like, getting to witness this debrief.
yeah. I feel the same about you. Like, I feel the same about you and Mike, and I know, like, we went through some like, we were both single together, and we both got married, like, later than a lot of our friends. We didn't even get into there was a whole topic that we didn't even get into, but it's done now. Let's leave it.
Thank you for having me, like, letting me be a part of these conversations because I am a big fucking dreamer, but every time we have a chat like this, like, I am dreaming even bigger. So thank you.
Well, love that, love that. Well, thanks so much, Core, and thank you, big fucking dreamers, and we'll see you next episode.